Museums and looting kind of go hand in hand. If you are a regular viewer of this channel, you probably know this already. Most, if not all, of the biggest institutions in the world are filled to the brim with art and artifacts that were stolen, looted, or otherwise nefariously acquired during times of chaos and conflict. We know that this has historically been quite prevalent in colonized nations, with this beginning really in earnest in the 18th century, when European superpowers set forth and staked their claim on land that was already occupied by other advanced and culturally rich peoples. People have died for these types of things, especially when tangible cultural heritage proves that these rich cultures exist, and there are other cultures in the world that don't like that. I talked about this extensively in my Museums and War video concerning the war in Ukraine, and it didn't do very well, but I stand by everything I said in that video, and it's really good, and you should go watch that after this. But the focus of today's video concerns the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, and they were in the headlines a couple months ago, not just because of the 2023 Met Gala that celebrated a man known for his fashion, homophobia, and racism, but the headlines that I'm going to be talking about today concern antique smuggling.
You really are the most devious bastard in New York City.
So I'm going to be completely honest with you. Talking about antiquities and conflict is one of my favorite things, and I think it's partially because people don't realize how linked those two things are, and I think furthermore than that, I think people also just don't realize how prevalent and contemporary it is. We didn't leave this in the past. It's still happening. For example, remember ISIS, bloodthirsty terrorist group, most prevalent in the 2010s? Did you know that some estimates put their antique smuggling trade as their second or third highest port of income after oil? They were continuing the long-standing tradition of conquerors everywhere by looting and selling whatever they deemed appropriate and destroying everything that didn't line up with their worldview to further scare, erase, and destroy periods of history and culture. I think when we consider many of these bigger institutions in the world, in particular in Europe and North America, and we consider their collections that have a number of items that were looted or stolen or otherwise nefariously acquired, and we talk about repatriation, but I think we have a tendency to think that all of that theft and all of that looting and all of that nefarious acquirement happened in the past, when that is definitely not the case. Because surely these modern institutions would not continue to accept items and collections from regions of conflict, right? Right? Some of you may be familiar with the term blood diamonds, which refers to gems mined in areas of conflict that are then sold to help fund the war effort. Now, I would like to introduce you to the term blood antiques, which are antiques looted from museums and archaeological excavations during times of conflict that are then sold to international antique smugglers, sellers, and buyers, the profit of which is then used to finance acts of terror and war. Now, that sounds pretty bad, right? But surely no modern, civilized institution would ever continue to purchase items from... Oh wait, what's that? The Met has actually identified thousands of artifacts in their collection that were reported as stolen in the last 50 years? And 300 of them are on display? Yikes. According to one article, 1,109 pieces, of which fewer than half have records describing how they left their country of origin, previously owned by people indicted or convicted for antiquities crimes or their galleries, and 309 of those are currently on display. Now, I just want to take a quick pause and say that I do not blame the probably underpaid museum tech that works at the Met Gallery, who is probably just struggling to get through their day and is just there to catalog a collection that, let's face it, probably isn't very well organized. I mean, it's a museum. You show me a well-organized museum collection where they know where everything is, and I will walk naked through whatever public square you think will bring me the most humiliation. My point is that the underpaid museum tech probably isn't aware that an item was illegally acquired, but I bet you there's a curator or a collection manager or a museum director further up the ladder that does know. And they were the one who was having discussions and striking deals with a well-known, now disgraced, art smuggler by the name of Subhash Kapoor, who has been shuffled between prisons and legal systems since about 2011 when he was arrested in Germany and extradited to India. Kapoor's name was found repeatedly throughout the Met catalogue, and indeed it was found by a number of reporters who found his name on 77 works that were marked as either sold or donated by him or his associates. His associates, by the way, include other disgraced antiquities dealers, like Nancy Viner, who was convicted of providing false provenances to cover up exactly where and how she sourced her antiquities. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if this number was actually quite a bit bigger. I have never worked at the Met, but from my personal experience working in museums, I have found that online catalogs are not representative of everything that's actually in the collection. But anyway, Kapoor was arrested, and now the Met is scrambling to do damage control, and they're having this discussion about how to repatriate many of these items that were stolen or looted from India, Turkey, Greece, Egypt, you name it. The Met has announced that they are going to put together a provenance research team to try and track down where certain items came from so that repatriation can happen. But some items may be stuck in this collection forever now because they've been ushered and shuffled through the hands of smugglers, dealers, buyers, sellers, curators, and in that shuffle, a lot of information can be lost, and it can be really difficult to find out where an item came from when it's been moved halfway across the world and has all of its provenance stripped from it. I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying that this provenance research team has their work cut out for them. Additionally, the Met has formed a committee of 18 conservators, curators, and other museum staff to really consider its legal and public policies and practices when it comes to collecting. Honestly, this kind of surprised me because, this isn't a new conversation, and the Met has been in the hot seat with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office for a while. So I'm just kind of surprised that they're really putting this committee together now. Every time I think that museums are all kind of getting on the same page, it's always one of these bigger institutions that just disappoint me. Anyway, that is pretty much all I have to say about the Met today. I'm going to keep an eye on this just because I'm curious, and I want to see how things progress. If you want to hear me chat more about museums and niche historical topics, please consider hitting the like button and also subscribing to this channel so you can see more of me if that's a thing that you want. But I hope that you have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are, and I will see you next time.